Welcome back to the tomb, everyone. This is the Pharaoh, aka Ali, and for today's episode, it's called Tales from the Motherland. And I have two very important guests with me today, and I'll have them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Efosa Isaacal. I met Ali in undergrad, and I'm glad to be here.
My name is Oladipo Laogun. I too am glad to be here. I met Ali in my undergrad as well, where he, myself, and Efosa were all part of the same fraternity, and can't wait to get to the topics today.
So the topic today, well, the title of it is Tales from the Motherland, and kind of what I wanted to speak to you guys about is because both of you guys are Nigerian, and Fosa, you came to the United States when you were 14, correct?
Correct?
So I kind of wanted to just pick your brains and talk about your experiences growing up in a Nigerian household. So I guess let's get it. Let's get into the first part of it. It's like, what was the parent like? What were your parents' parenting style growing up?
Okay, guess I'll start first. What we were talking about before the segment started, the typical parents preaching is their child has to go to school. Education is the number one factor. Actually, no, religion is the number one factor, then education. uh, and for the education aspect, I'm sure you've heard this before. Every Nigerian parent wanted to either be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Uh, so that was kind of like the thing that was going on with my parents. So.
I would definitely agree. My parents were definitely very similar. It's funny. In the stereotypical Nigerian sense, in my head when Efosa was saying that, I was like, and Efosa made his parents proud by getting his doctorate or becoming a doctor in the sense of the word, and I did not because
Not yet.
I do not plan on getting my doctorate or being a doctor. So we'll see how that goes.
No, you can get your doctorate in public health.
Did I say I wanted to do that?
I'm working on you. Don't worry. So, I guess so. Well, I sent you guys earlier the thing from TikTok talking about like five Nigerian like punishments. So, I guess like was there uh what's the actual name for it? Like corporal punishment in your households?
For sure. There was definitely corporal punishment in my household and all the other Nigerian households that I grew up with.
So would it range from just like being hit with a belt, having something thrown at you? Because there are some like I guess corporal punishment to some people is different than like there was a show on I think like NBC called The Slap where it was like a whole show about some white kid got slapped at a birthday party and everyone was like, "Oh my god." And it's just that's well, I can say I've never been slapped before, but I've been disciplined by my family. Um, and a lot of times people say like this is abuse versus this is discipline. So, what would you guys kind of think about that?
Uh, well, I definitely got a few stories about what my parents did for discipline. But I think, and also from having sisters, or younger sisters specifically, I think after they learned that the stuff they did with me like wasn't really as effective as they wanted to be, they realized, more effective ways of disciplining. But I've definitely had, I've definitely seen a belt before. I've definitely had my ear twisted a few times. Efosa's laughing because he definitely felt the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Definitely had my ear twisted by my mom a few times. Definitely had not like a slap, but like a firm hand, not to my face or anything, but like some firm hands for sure. Mostly when I was younger, like in middle school, high school, that high school is non-existent. Middle school, it dramatically dropped towards like, the end of that period. But I remember there was one time I quite literally like juked my dad and like dipped into my room, which like you're not supposed to do by any means. And then another time, I'll tell you guys what I did after the episode. But my mom usually does this thing where you face the wall, and so you're not like hit or anything, but you're forced to kneel in front of a wall and raise your hands for like 20 minutes maybe. So max, nothing too crazy, but like as a kid, you're like, my arms are getting tired. And you know how many kids I've seen at my Nigerian church have to face the wall, and that is like the greatest punishment you can give a child, as long as you like stick to it, because they're just like, they're just like snotting and crying, and their mom is like, where's the wall? And they're like,
Wait, you said this was at church?
yeah, it takes a village, bro.
So the pastor would be in the middle of a sermon. And...
Nah, it wouldn't be that wild.
Okay.
But maybe, so like maybe the kids are running around, or a kid is being loud during the pastor's sermon. A mom would definitely take that kid to the back, because there's like a mud room, I guess is what you would call it, between the church and the front door. And then there's like an upstairs where like the kids would do their classes. So occasionally a kid would end up coming up to the class, and either his mom would just be like, bro, you got to stay up here because I'm not dealing with you, or she would have him like face the wall or do something to that extent for like 5 minutes, and then she would just be like, bro, y'all keep this kid up here until the church is over.
Okay, so kind of like going to what you said, is that like you said that you haven't ever been like slapped in the face?
Nah, nothing. I wouldn't catalog anything as like abuse. There's definitely definitely some corporal punishment in there, but I wouldn't categorize it as abuse because of the intent, and also because my parents, like, it's not like we have a bad relationship. Like, we talk to each other, we communicate. I will tell them to this day that like that stuff wasn't cool, and they'll be like, yeah, and we figured it out, but like, still happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been slapped in the face, not for not deny that, a couple times by different adults. I don't know if I'm the best or worst candidate for this kind of question, but growing up, I was the, what do you call it? Sort of like the brown sheep in the family. Like black is too much. When it comes to grading, like I said, how the parents take education very seriously, I was the only kid in my family who brought in the worst grade. So basically, let me give an example. The way we graded in Nigeria, there's, let's say there's 28 students in the class. Your grade is basically, if you're the first or the best student in the class, you get first out of 28. I was in the 20s. Yeah, so I think I've gotten like 22, 25 out of 28. So
it wasn't letter grade, it was more so how you compared to the rest of your peers?
There were letter grades, but just like a cumulative grade, which puts you like,
oh, okay, gotcha,
what you are. And when I got home, I always knew I was getting the beating. And I think that was from my dad's side. My dad was the backup, my mom was the good one. My dad would, if he doesn't have any wooden cane, I don't know what it's called in America, but he would send me.
He would send you to get the stick?
Yep, he would send me.
It would be called a switch.
yeah, he would give me money, and then I'll go to the store to go buy the switches. If they run out of switch, I would go cut it from a tree branch or something.
You had to pick out your
Yeah,
own switch.
yeah. So there were many occasions where when my dad was not around, I would go into his room, take all the switches, and just hide them. I can't even throw them away because he somehow finds them. I just hide them. But yeah, and I think growing up since I came to America,
Did he ever end up finding the switches?
No, I hit them. We're good. Oh, you don't understand. When you get whooped so many times, like
I'm dead because I immediately, as you said that, I was like, I've definitely had to bring the belt. I've definitely had to go get my own belt.
You don't understand. I had to get creative. But growing up, I think the discipline kind of upgraded in a way, where it kind of switched from my dad to my mom. And my mom, there's some stuff she would say to me, and I'll just be like, I'd rather you beat me than say that stuff. You know? Like she would like say some words that I'd make like feel really bad, like even regret whatever wrong you did. I'm just, but yeah, that's pretty much how the discipline has been for me.
So, do you think that well, first of all, do you think that it was good that you were physically disciplined? Well, from what you said, Efosa, nigga, you were beat.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because do you think that it was good that you that happened versus just having a stern talking to? Because through some of the readings that I've done, is that there's something called ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, and what it is that depending on things that happen to you as a child or don't happen to you as a child, it's like that could be like a point on the ACEs scale. And with that, it's like they've correlated that to different types of health outcomes, behavior outcomes, and psychological outcomes. And one of the things is that if you were struck by a authority figure or like a parent or guardian growing up, not just if you were struck at all, but every instance you were struck, that would be constitute as an ACEs. So, but the interesting thing about that is that when they created the scale, it was, I think, white children and like white middle class children in California. I think it was California. So culturally and racially, it's like white parents really aren't hitting their children like that.
Mhm.
So it is a big thing. So if they were to take the three of us, give us the examination, we would have high ACEs just because of one thing. Just like not even taking into account the racism, all the other stuff that we have to deal with as children. It's like so. It's like so. Do you think that when you guys have children that you aren't going to physically discipline them?
I think there'll be, for me, I think there'll be some sort of, there's going to be some sort of discipline. Um, you know, maybe like for little kids, they probably more of a like the face the wall kind of scenario, for sure. And honestly, even into like teens and adulthood, probably not like there's not going to be any belts for sure. There's not going to be any like beatings, but like a little slap on the hand every once in a while definitely does a kid good. I would say, in terms of like very much being the presence of, oh, you don't grab a knife and run around, slap the hand. Don't do that. Learn your lesson. Remember this moment because you do not need to be doing, acts like that. But in terms of anything beyond that, I don't think I would do that to my kids. Because even like watching my parents with like I said, with my sisters, I was like, did you forget what happened a couple years ago when I was here in this exact scenario?
Yo,
And I remember being a kid and just thinking like not even like being able to process it. Like my parents know how to treat a child who does a bad thing.
They
Crazy.
know how to not beat someone.
Exactly.
They can say no.
But I wonder, you know, with the ACEs scale and like compared to the like beatings, like is there some sort of multiplier for like verbal abuse, kind of in the way similar way to what Efosa said, like I would rather you hit me than to even say something like this to me, kind of thing.
Mm.
Because you know, and there's this really good song by I can't remember her name. She's on Ari Lennox. There's a really good song on her album. And that song at the end of it, she does like a blurb like physical abuse is horrible, but emotional abuse can cut you so much deeper in some ways. Like in her examples, like a guy from her past that like tried to like emotionally abuse her into like dating him or something, and just like you're trying to manipulate me into this thing and just like trying to reframe you know, thought processes and you know just things like that. So I wonder how those are graded on that scale.
I think those are definitely in the scale. I can't tell you
If there's
specifically the
yeah.
specifics of it, but I can probably send you a couple articles, and you can probably find somewhere the instrument that they use to measure it, because they have one for adults and one for children. So, what about you, Fosa?
yeah, following up on Depot, yeah, I agree. I'll probably do the same thing. Um, but the one thing that got me worried is that even as a kid, thinking back, I knew I had a stubborn blood. And no matter how much anyone talked to me, I never listened. And even when they whooped me, sometimes it got worse. Like, but it's even now, it's hard for me to find like the balance how I would treat my kid. But I know like the whooping part is it's not something I would want to incorporate, except if it's necessary, and that would be last line. But yeah,
You're not
that's
going
the
to
way
make
I say it
them
right now.
pick out their own switches?
No, no,
I feel like
no,
you would have
because
a traumatic
no,
response as soon as
exactly. No, like,
At that
if I
point,
do
you just
that,
start whipping yourself.
no, because if I do that, like I feel like I'm just gonna have a flashback to like whatever is going through this kid's head right now. What was going through my head when I was walking to go get that food?
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, not for you, not for you.
So
That's
it's
like
kind of
when
like you wouldn't want your kid to have those thoughts about you that you had when
Mm-hmm.
you were.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
And I definitely agree with you. Is that I think that like there are some parents that there are some parents, there are some people that are about to be parents that they'll say like there's no place for any type of corporal punishment, but I think that should definitely be the last line of any type of discipline, because it's like how Depot said is if that child's running around with a knife, you need to make sure that child remembers this moment, because
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that corporal punishment should only be reserved for if the child is doing something that could irreversibly alter the course of their life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But a lot of times is that there are parents that use corporal punishment as the first go-to. And I think part of it is that they don't know how to actually parent. Granted, our parents don't know how to parent. They're still learning how to be parents. But there are some that are more equipped than others to understand, like, okay, this child might have spoke back to me. I don't need to go get a cane. It's like you can actually talk your way through that one and then explain to them that there are like ramifications for not listening to authority. I think that sometimes with, well, in the United States with black sons, is that I understand why some parents go to corporal punishment, because if that child does not learn how to respect authority as a black son, that could kill them.
Mhm.
Um, so I definitely understand it. I just think that, again, like a fossil, like you said, is that only when it's necessary, and there are very few times I think like within like a childhood that it's going to be necessary. It's like, unless you're a little badass kid who's out there stabbing other kids on the playground, like, then there's not going to be that many times where corporal punishment is an absolute uh, necessity. But a lot of times people, A, don't know how to parent, and B, don't have the patience to parent. So it's like, I could sit down and talk to this kid for 15 minutes, or I could whoop them for two and then send them on their way. It's like, but the child didn't really learn anything. It's like they learned not to do that, but they never learned why you shouldn't do that. It's like, if you give the child the why, then that tends to stick like further in the mind than just don't do that. But that's just my I'm not having kids, so I don't have to worry about it. So,
and
but hmm?
and just to like add on in what you mentioned about parenting, for me, I think what also helped, because either one or both of my parents were not like at home most of the time, uh, with like my aunties, so basically relatives. They came by the house to like actually take care of us, me and my siblings, and they also like had their own different kind of discipline. But I feel like when it comes to like parenting, having relatives around also helps, especially relatives you can trust, not just any relative.
Yeah,
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
would
like
definitely
you.
agree.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying I would definitely agree.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's that it takes a village, and I think that's one of the things that, for the most part, within like the African American community, is like, we still have that type of village mentality. It's a little bit dwindling now, but I think I said this to you guys before we got on here. It's like, before like 1968 and things like that, like, we really had our own communities. So it's like, if you were going, like, if you were down the street at someone's house and you were acting a fool, it's like, that person had the authority to discipline you, and then
Yep.
tell your parents about it, and then when you got
Mhm.
home you got disciplined as well, like.
Exactly.
So it really stuck to your mind. It's like, okay, I got twice as much trouble for, like, let me never do this again. um I mean, it still happens, but I think that because we've been in this environment like for so long, it's like we're starting to kind of lose that, because a lot of times you'll see, like, uh Deepa, I think you said it before we got on, was just like, or no, I think I forget who said it, but it was like, an African mother will see a child acting up in the store, and she'll be like, "Do you want me to beat that child for you, or are you going to, like, something needs to happen here because that child's doing something crazy?" But that's the village mentality.
Hmm.
But all right, moving on. Next one. What was expected from you guys as like being the son in the family?
For me, uh, I knew what was expected of me for was in terms of education was to be the first to graduate, be it undergrad or grad level. In that way, I can show like my younger sibling that they also can do it, or they can. It kind of like gives them something to aim for, that kind of thing. Um, I was expected, as usual, not to get into trouble, but coming from Nigerian, living in America, I think, just thinking about it, I think I've changed a lot in some kind of ways. Like I remember when I told you guys that I was stubborn when I was younger, and then you look at me weird, like you don't look like you are a stubborn kid. But yeah, pretty much. I just see myself differently, and I know that whatever I do, it has to paint a good picture for my younger ones. That kind of stuff. That's just how I look at them. Look at things.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it was ever like a as the son you have to do this kind of thing. I think it was more as the older sibling you have to be a role model for your younger siblings, and I think that's where a lot of the discipline came from because it was like Efosa said, grades. It's great. It's religion grades and everything else. Doctor, engineer, lawyer. So like as soon as your grades are slipping up, there's discipline because they want you to be the role model for your siblings who need to have good grades. And as soon as you're acting up in the church, you need to be a role model because you have to be, your siblings have to be in the church and involved or in some manner. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say it was ever really like something, to be honest with you.
So um, when your parents transition, do you think that you're kind of expected to be like not the leader of the family, but like to kind of step up to take like a leadership role in the family? Or is that do you if so, is that because you're the oldest or because you're the son?
I would say it's because I'm the oldest more than because I'm the son. I think it's I think it's naturally expected, just being the oldest. But I would say it's more because of the oldest than being the son. Like even in um, my closest cousins, their oldest siblings, it's two girls and two boys, and like the oldest son is not like it's always going to be the oldest child because they're looked to as the leader in like the Nigerian household. Like my mom's siblings, she's got seven siblings. Her oldest sibling is a sister. Don't even get me started on my dad's siblings. But
How many does your
my
dad have?
I think my dad has 16 siblings.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure he has six. Well, he's got one or two, maybe three brothers directly with the same mom, but the rest are different mothers. But but they operate as a family. It was always like very close knit. Like he's never he's never called his brothers his half brothers. It's these are your brothers, these are your cousins. That's how it's always been. Um, but yeah, with my mom's family, her older sibling is the sister who is the mother of the four that I was just talking about, and they are looked at generally as like the leaders in the family. Obviously, they're all of age. They're all for the most part, at least the top five are like older, wiser, and such. So they're kind of on like a council level. It's not like a president versus the rest of them, but like a tyrant. But they definitely, I would say, look to her as like the leader to a certain extent.
gotcha.
Yeah, I also agree with Deepo. It comes down to the age, who's the oldest. Um, for my mom's side, the oldest in our family is my auntie, and I know she's like the elderly one, and she's the one who looks after the rest of her siblings till today. However, for my dad, the oldest is a female, also my auntie. Um, However, my dad is, I think he's the second to last out of seven siblings, but he's the one like taking care of the family. Um, Even though he's not the oldest, but he's fortunately in a position where he's able to
You
um,
help.
help his
Okay.
other siblings, that kind of stuff.
I was gonna ask, is it more of in that case, was it more of just like a financial economic
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
And especially being one of the siblings that like came to America
Mhm.
as well, or yeah, but had family in America and such. Um, Yeah, I would say it's definitely more of an older sibling thing from my perspective. Like even with my dad's side of the family, it happens to be a son, but it's really just the oldest son. And he's always, I think he himself has always been the provider. Like he just had his 60th birthday last week. My dad's actually in Nigeria right now with him, and they had his 60th birthday last week. He's basically the chief now,
Oh,
and he's for like the past my entire life, the entire time he's been here in America, he's always been like sending vehicles back to Nigeria for people to drive, sending
uh,
money back.
That's a lot of
He's
money.
he didn't even have a car.
And
To
he
be
was
fair,
giving people cars?
he was in New York, but he was getting people car. Well, he may have been selling some cars as well, but he was providing, you know, vehicles and things that are, wouldn't come easy 30 years ago in Nigeria. So he he became chief like a few years ago, and my cousin posted about it, the birthday party. Like 1,000 people came to celebrate his birthday with him. He just built a new hotel over there in Abeokuta, where my family is really my family on both my sides, but my dad's side very much is from. And the my technically my great uncle is the he was the president of Nigeria, um, General Obasanjo, and
oh,
he was at the party,
oh.
and I keep seeing him at like these events,
Oh,
and I'm like, it's just crazy, just like the respect level of like this provider, like
damn.
very interesting.
Damn, you out here being royalty. Like you might have to be
Oh,
the pharaoh after
shit.
this.
I'm not
Oh,
royalty.
shit.
He was the president, but I don't know.
Of all the presidents,
My
Olusegun
dad met him
Obasanjo.
recently, but yeah,
Damn.
That's it.
Yeah, that's oh, since you were talking about where your parents are from, so could you kind of tell people like where either you're well, also where you're from, your family from, and then also like the tribe slash nation that you guys come from?
sweet.
Okay. Both my parents are from Edo State. Uh, we're based in Benin City. My dad is Edo or Benin. My mom is from a dialect of Edo also, which is Isha. Uh, if we're gonna dive into that, then when it comes to the language, I don't know any of it. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that.
My yeah, both my mom said that she started teaching us like the language, and my dad also wanted to teach us the language too. Something happened; they didn't come to an agreement, so none of them taught the language to us. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'll just
I,
put the full stop there.
my parents didn't really teach me the language either. My family, excuse me, my family is Yoruba. We and let me backtrack. Part of the reason I would say that I didn't learn is probably similar to Efosa's. Like both of my parents were they were working all the time. They weren't really home a lot. So like there's only really so much you can teach a child. And like I understand Yoruba, but I don't I'm not I if I couldn't have a full conversation, I could hear a full conversation and tell you generally what people are saying. But you know, when it comes to like more deeper conversations or different contexts, I definitely get a little bit of lost. But regardless, my parents are both Yoruba. My family is originally from Ogun State. Uh, like I said, they're both sides of my family there from Abeokuta, which is a village in Ogun State. Um, my both my parents in our my father's last name and my mother's maiden name. Um, the word Ogun is in the name. Um, And so like my last name means the wealth of Ogun, the wealth, the blessings, the favor of Ogun. And then my mother's maiden name, which I won't say, is the Ogun has the answers. So I guess together it creates like the wealth of Ogun has the answers, which is very interesting if you go into like Yoruba religion and things of that nature. But fortunately for colonialism, my parents are very Christian.
Don't worry, we're gonna get into that.
Shit.
But could you actually, could both of you actually, if you feel comfortable, explaining what your full names mean? Because like you said, your last name, but then
So my first name is technically my first name is Oladipo, which is my wealth has become plenty, but my parents didn't write that on the birth certificate. They just wrote Oladipo, which is well, my wealth has come, or my wealth has, or it's like much wealth. It basically means much wealth. The Pukwa means has become many, and then so like if you saw someone in Nigeria whose name was Oladipo and you're Yoruba, you would naturally call them Oladipokwa, and it wouldn't be a difference. It's like calling someone whose name is Alexander, but it makes sense like culturally. So that, like I said, that means my wealth have become plenty. My last name, like I just said, is Alaogun, which is the wealth of Ogun. And then my middle name is Olanriwaju, which the meaning is not coming to me right now, but I don't know if Efosa, if you would like to describe your name, I probably would be able to remember it.
also sorry for putting governments out there.
My first, last, and middle are all over everything. So,
okay.
Like I said, no, I won't tell you the maiden name for password security, but yeah.
So my first name, Efosa, full name Efosa Sherry. The F4 means money or wealth, and then the Osa means God, which means wealth of God, same as Tipo. My middle name is Hinosen. I think that means I did the right thing. The last name is Zeko. I don't know. Yeah.
So
but I can tell you my English name, Gregory, which is my baptismal name.
goddamn Greg.
Yeah.
So I guess with understanding the meaning of your names, it's like, has that influenced kind of how you've like navigated through life, like having a meaningful name?
I mean, I definitely would say it's definitely been something that I'm proud of, having a name that has a meaning that not only I know, but like when people who are Nigerian speak to me, they know the meaning. Speaking of, I remember the meaning of my middle name. It means my wealth is the future, or I have wealth in my future, basically.
A lot of wealth going around here.
And even my sisters have Allah, which OLA, that they have that in their names as well, which is wealth, favor, blessings, that almost indescribable word, because nothing's a direct translation, but I definitely have enjoyed it, and I'm very proud of having something like that attached to me and my name.
Yeah, that's the same, pretty much the same for me. I learned about the meaning of my name in my mid, almost, I think, was I 15 or 16 years old? So, I think that just put me in a, I don't know the word, like a good position for something to look up to or to look forward to. I mean, I know when I was, yeah, mindset, yeah. I know I was kind of like ignorant as a kid when I first learned about this. I was like, so in the future, I'm gonna get wealth, just like that. But now I was like, it's something to work towards. That's the way I say it. To work toward our wealth. So,
And you said like your middle name means I did the right thing.
Yeah.
If you learned that a little bit younger, do you think you still would have been as stubborn?
Well, he did the right thing. If you're gonna ask him, he did the right thing.
Oh shit!
I'm just messing with you. But no, the reason why I asked because I understand the significance of a name. Like, if people listen to the first episode, "The Makings of a Man," my dad broke down what the meaning of my name is, and with that growing up, it kind of like gave me a sense of pride. It was just like, oh, some dude walking around, his name's Tyler. It literally comes from the fact that your family was like a Tyler. It's like you would just lay tiles. It's like, no offense to people named Tyler, but like I have a name that's deeper than that. And I was thinking about something a couple weeks ago, and so by this point, everyone has probably seen Black Panther. And the scene when Killmonger uh, takes the herb and goes and speaks to his dad, uh, he talks about, oh, like when he's looking through the book, what did you find? It's like, oh, I found your homeland. It's like his father replies, I hope you get to see it one day. It's beautiful. I gave you something so you can go see it. And that's when Killmonger like reveals the tattoo. And I kind of realize is that with my uh, first and middle name, it's like my dad actually gave me something that I could go back to. It's like it gave me a key to go back to because when I'm speaking to people from Ghana and I tell them my name's Ashanti Ali, they're like, "Oh, my brother, how are you?" And like when I tell them like, "Oh, where are your parents from in Ghana?" It's like my parents have never been to yeah, my parents have never been to Ghana, but my dad gave me a key to get like to connect with our people from the motherland. So it there's something powerful in a name.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So when you guys have children, are you going to give them traditional Nigerian names?
I would love to.
Yeah.
I've always been partial to Femi. I don't know why. Like there's a lot of like what's the word? Not like beginning of word phrases. I can't remember it. Antecedents, I guess.
Prefix.
Prefix. There's a lot of Nigerian prefix like Ola or like Alubo or Oluwa, which means God. A lot of like Oluwafemi or Obafemi or Nigerian names are very interesting because, God forbid if my like one of my parents passed, there's like a name that you use. There's a naming convention that you use for when the parent has passed in the same year that a child is born.
Mm.
So like two of my cousins who were born after my grandfather passed, one of them is Baba Tunde and the other one is Baba Jide, which basically means the father has returned or the father has like awoken, essentially. What respectively both those names. Or like Yetunde, which is the same thing for our mother. And they're also names for twins. I can't remember which one is which, but there's Taye/Taiwo and Kehinde, and I believe Taye/Taiwo is the first to come, and then the Kehinde means the second to come.
Mm. That's very interesting. And that's interesting that like your name can be determined that like obviously your name is determined by things outside of you. Your parents name you, but like based on the circumstances in which you're born under, it's like you can have a specific name.
My dad actually, even has his name. He and one of his brothers have the same name because it basically just means born during a holiday.
Damn.
It's crazy. It's crazy how culture works. But like if you reflect that into like Arabic culture, like, or I guess more Muslim culture, how the name of the Prophet Muhammad is either someone's first name or their middle name, pretty much overall. So I don't know. It's interesting how different cultures use those things. But you were saying?
Well, I think it was you, Efosa, that was telling me that sometimes when a baby is born, it's like they're not immediately named, that they end up like, what was the? Could you explain that to me again?
Like a naming ceremony.
Yeah, naming ceremony. I think when a baby is born, I think there's a couple weeks, and then the family holds like a gathering where, for my Benin culture, it's when my relative comes in, they put money down, and then they name the kid. So basically, I have a bunch of names.
Yeah,
I
I was
have
about
a
to say,
lot of names.
I
Yeah.
technically have like 5 or 6.
Oh, I have way more.
Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say I don't know how many you have, but I definitely have a few.
Yeah, and basically the one that my parent or the grandparent gives the child is what the child goes after. I forget how they get to choose, but I think it's the person with the strongest status in the family, which is usually the elderly,
Mhm.
or the parent of the child that gets the final say. But the other names the child gets is still the child's name. It's just not what the child goes by every day. Like if the child turns like maybe 20 something, a relative can come in and just call the child what the relative named the child
Mm-hmm.
and be like, yeah, that's what I named you. But still, the child still goes after what his parents or grandparents or whoever.
So you can have a first, secondary, and tertiary name. That
Yep. Oh, it goes long. It goes deep.
Yeah, I was in
Yeah.
Quaternary.
Quaternary.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we talked about you guys not, your parents not teaching you the language. Do you, like, what are your thoughts? Well, what are your not thought? Well, what are your feelings about that? Like, do you wish at times you actually learned it, or is it something that doesn't really preoccupy your headspace that much?
Oh yeah. I wish I did learn it. I mean, like people said, like when if I go back to Nigeria and people start talking to me in my Benin or Asian culture, I might be able to pick up on some few stuff, but not like the main thing. I can I can say the simple like phrases in the languages, but I really do wish I could like speak eloquently in the language with them. So yeah, and even though I know you said this to me, Ali, you say it's never too late to learn the language.
It's not. Just spend 2 years in Edo State. Like, you'll pick it up because
And
you need to
Bro,
learn it
you
for people to, for
make it
you to
sound so
survive.
easy. What time am I gonna have to spend 2 years in those?
and that's the thing. It really you have to like immerse yourself in it because
Exactly.
you can't like you could watch some YouTube videos, but you can't really just pick up a book and it's not like Spanish, which has been you know
Heavily documented and like
heavily documented.
Mhm.
They even document the differences between like Colombian Spanish and Venezuelan Spanish and things of that
the
nature. Like
Catalan and all that.
exactly like Yoruba is it's a language across people who are kind of to a certain point developing the language still because you know there's new things being or have to
Oh
be
yeah.
added.
Oh yeah.
You know, a lot of even a lot of Yorubas that I hear from my parents is mixed with English because there's just not a word for certain things. Um, or they kind of do it. Sometimes they'll kind of do it in like a Spanglish thing, where like the first half of the sentence will be in English, and then a little bit of the end of the sentence will be in Yoruba, or. But
Hmm.
it's interesting.
And
Yeah.
like, and through like some of the readings that I have, going to your point, Depot, is that words need to be added in. And one of the things that I found out is that in African languages, before colonization of, well, colonization by Europeans and then the invasions by people from the Middle East, is that they didn't have a word for jail. They didn't have a word for adoption. They didn't have a word for retirement. And it's just very interesting to, because if those things existed at that time, then like the natural human inclination is to have a name for it. So it was just very interesting when you said that words are constantly being added. Um, but yeah, I definitely agree with you that one part of it is you definitely have to immerse yourself, because once you're in that environment, see the sink or swim. And and just being human, the last thing you want to feel is like isolated from people. So, I mean, Efosa, when I went to when I went with you to Lagos, what, it took me about maybe a week and a half to start understanding some of it, and then by the end of the month, it was like, your cousin. Not gonna lie to you, the first time I spoke to your cousin when I got there, I had no idea what he was saying to me. It's like, I know some of these words are English, but I'm just not getting it. And by the end of it, it's like I was using some of the words and things like that. I didn't get the accent yet, but we're working on it. But yeah, it's definitely just immersing yourself in it. So I know it said it's not too late to learn, but like, do you guys actually have plans to try to end up and learning? I mean, I think with you, Depot, you can kind of listen to just a couple of Burna Boy albums and you'll pick it up.
Yeah. That's funny. I've definitely tried to work on it. It's tough with work and whatnot, but during the pandemic, my sisters started picking it up because they were, school from home, and my sister would watch these actual really good YouTube videos on learning Yoruba, but it's I just really need to get into it. I need to like dive into it, and there's so many things that I'm trying to learn at once. I need to make like some sort of regiment, like Yoruba on Monday, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday, my other projects or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just get down to it, because I'm just not gonna learn. I'm gonna keep pushing it off. Luckily, I do have cousins who, as long as I, put it out there that I want to practice, they would practice with me. So that's really all about getting to it.
Yeah. For me, I think I either have to go back to Benin or kind of like find time to have like the one-on-one with my parents, them to teach me that. Well, yeah, it's in the works. I'll say that. It's in the works. Not there yet.
Because I feel like with Yoruba, because of how big it is that more resources. Because I know that before we left, I was trying to learn a couple phrases and be like, hey, he's cultured. He's not an Akata.
Culture.
Oh, by the way, Fosa, do you want to tell people what the term Akata means?
I really do regret telling you that word, like seriously.
It's okay.
I forget the context where
it's like teaching
where I had to bring it up.
That's all they want to say.
So I kind of regretfully called Ali an Akata, and then he asked me what the word means, and it basically means. Ali, I'll let you give the English title, but from what I know, it meant is a Black person that's not from Africa, not born in Africa or whatever. So basically meeting a Black person anywhere else, that's an Akata. And I'll read the English definition, if you would, please.
Okay, well, you decided to say it a little bit more PC, but the way that you explained it to me, the way that you explained it to me is that Akata essentially means a cat that doesn't stay at home, which I didn't take offense to it. I just mess with you because I think you think that I'm hurt by it, but it actually it is good because that means that they acknowledge African Americans as their brothers. It's like you're just across the sea, you're not staying at home, but this is your home.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to before we even keep going, I
Oh, let's go. Let's go.
bring that up. But this is a couple more questions, and then I'll let you guys go. I know that you both of you talked about how you're going to church, colonialism, and things like that. And it's like, so I take it that your parents are heavily religious.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom is Catholic and my dad is Baptist.
Oh,
Yeah, both my parents are Pentecostal.
Yeah. Like technically I think my mom's middle name is Augustina because of St. Augustine.
okay. So, what are their views on African spirituality? Because, like you said, Ogun, like you have Ogun, and then Olagun is like, so it's in your African spirituality is in your name. It's like, but you're practicing this.
I don't think they really spoke about it until like I asked my parents about the meaning. Specifically when I asked my father about the meaning of our last name, like he went in depth and was like, "Oh, this is the name of the god of iron who our people worship in Abeokuta, or people still worship in Abeokuta, and you know, this is who they sacrifice animals to on occasion, or who they revere in that way." And I've definitely done my own research on it, but I wouldn't say that they were like, my dad was definitely more open to conversation, but my mother was definitely like, she tried to turn it into like a Christian like meaning, and I was like, that's not, it's not the God that we're talking about here. But definitely, I think there's some sort of like institutionalized fear of like even discussing it amongst like Christian Africans, especially when you talk about like the history and like the really where Christianity comes from, and how if you trace it back, Christianity is based on like the mythology, like Christianity, Greek mythology, Norse mythology, all comes back down into these things of a sky god and a land god, and like these things that if you really break it down, and just like the similarities between that and when you finally get back to African religions is very interesting. Especially there is quite literally a sky god. There's literally a trinity in I can't remember which. I don't remember if it's the Yoruba religion or if it's something else, but there is a like trinity between the idea of Olorun, which I believe means like is like the god of gods, and
You said
the
Olorun?
Olorun.
I think that's Ifa. Is that Ifa?
It might be. I remember like there's literally the original script. You know what I mean? Like the original, like the founding document that is in a culture. Maybe it's not your direct culture, but it's a culture around you. And it's just interesting the like fear of even touching this religion that used to be like, it's basically a part of your blood. Like literally is part of my blood from both sides. It's very interesting.
So, are you Christian?
I would say I am very agnostic.
That's fair. Efosa, I see you smiling over there. Go ahead.
Both my parents at the moment are very strong Christians. My dad family, I remember they have a history of like traditional religion, which is the African spirituality you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I forget at the point when my dad converted to straight up Christianity. And I know like the talk of anything traditional in the family is frowned upon.
So wait, he used to practice it before and then he converted?
Yeah. And even with Benin people, I don't know if you've heard of it, but we're known for our witchcraft. And like there's an old saying that says there are like Benin people flying in the night, that they can fly in the night to go meet you wherever, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is frowned upon now. So yeah, I'll just put it out, the full stop there.
So, because like Depot said, is that there's this fear of it, and I know that part of the fear comes from when the missionaries came in and was just like, oh, pretty much like everything y'all are doing are wrong. Like this is our supreme God. It's like so. My question is that if you believe God and Jesus Christ is as strong as they are, it's like then why would you fear something? Like why would you fear another religion?
That's where I wonder, and especially like if I'm in my Nigerian church, back to that Olorun conversation, like they use the name of the previous god, the actual Olorun, to describe the
Jesus, God, yeah.
religious God of the Trinity, Jesus,
yeah,
capital God and the Holy Spirit, and it just doesn't make sense if you're quite literally using the same words, probably the same exact songs in a lot of the cases, because there are many songs in Yoruba that they'll sing at church that aren't directly tied to the idea of Jesus.
It's just a God that they're praising.
Yeah,
exactly. It's most likely it's the same exact songs that these people were singing before, and it's just now been retrofitted to Christianity.
Yeah, it's the Jesus remix.
Exactly.
And I know, folks, so you and I have talked about it a lot because, like you said, is that your parents wouldn't bring it up. When I was there, I didn't know how religious your parents were, and I asked them to take me to Babalao, which would be a analogous
traditional pastor.
Yeah, they would be like a priest or a pastor in the Ifa spirituality system, and that's when your mom told me, it's like, oh, I'll take you to a Christian Babalao. So like, I feel like that's an oxymoron. I feel like those two things contradict each other.
Oh shit!
But I just find it very interesting because it's over there, and then I've also seen it over here in just African American religiosity. Is that when some kids are trying to connect back to African spirituality, sometimes they'll be ostracized by their parents. Just be like, "Why are you doing that devil worship?" It's like that's heathen stuff. And it's like, okay, first of all, we already talked about why do you fear if your God is so powerful, and secondly, if this religion is so powerful and they're able to send sickness and everything on that, slavery would have only lasted about 4 years, and then the spiritual goons would have came and got these white people. Like, so because they didn't, when they were taking our ancestors, they weren't taking Christians. It's like, so I just find I find the argument against African spirituality from a Christian standpoint, it's like it doesn't hold any water when you start really like analyzing it.
Yeah, and they just don't want to analyze it. I think that's
And
what it comes down to, and especially because it's ingrained.
mhm.
I mean, from a young age, it's like you're. It's kind of like there's this theory where people who are religious, what what do they do when aliens are shown to be real, right? So like if aliens come and aliens open up the sky in a flying saucer and they pull up and they're just like, yo, what's up?
Pull up.
And regardless of whether or not they're good or bad, but just the existence of aliens completely throws the concept of most religions, for the most part, is like a mind-blowing factor.
Honestly,
So
they'd probably try to convert the aliens.
that's wild.
I'm dead ass. You're like,
Come serve our God. He's pretty cool. He gives you a little piece of bread and some juice.
Here's some wine. You know, his son, he died for, I guess now, all of our sins, even the ones on other planets.
Good to know he died for your sins as well.
He just made a special appearance on ours.
Want to hear something dumb?
What?
Aren't aliens closer to heaven than us?
Oh, I don't know. Wouldn't they? I feel like they would be just as far.
Interesting.
I mean,
because when we think of heaven, we look up at the sky, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like heaven is in another dimension. Or is it? Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up.
We're definitely gonna have an episode about that.
Where's heaven in relative to space?
We're definitely gonna have it. Yeah, but I only have 2 more questions for you. So, when you were growing up, it's like, did you have like the racism talk and like? Did you talk about like racism and like the transatlantic like slave trade growing up? And like if you did, like what were you taught? What was taught?
I don't think my parents taught me about the transatlantic slave trade. I think unfortunately school did. But I definitely had the talk about racism, not directly about like, you know, the history, because, you know, my parents were immigrants, so they only knew what they knew from people treating them a certain way. But I definitely got the talks that I needed to make sure that I wasn't putting myself in any compromising positions around, you know, different, you know, figures in authority and whatnot, or even just different people, because you don't know everyone's motives. But yeah, not so much slavery. I probably at a young age, when like the concept first came up, like asked them about it, but I couldn't remember that conversation.
So when your parents came here, did they kind of get like a wake up call to racism? Because I know that there are sometimes that people will say like, well, I just want to get to America. I was like, if you're black, it's like, it's not what's like, you have to read the fine print on that advertisement, because if you're black, there's some restrictions may apply.
Well, I think international racism, like the effects of colonialism, kind of numb you to that. I think they came here and they were like, well, this is racist, but I've got my family and I'll get through it. Like it's we have our community, we have our friends. Because when my parents moved here, my mother moved here in like the late 80s and my father moved here in the early 90s, and they met, dated, had me, but they were living in New York. So I was born in Far Rockaway in Queens, and we lived there for a few years, and Far Rockaway is not the best neighborhood. So, and no shade to anyone who lives there, but, you know, just I think where we were, my dad was just like, I don't want to raise my child here. And I think he was kind of tired of like cities essentially. Because where my parents are from, you know, my family is from Abeokuta in Ogun State, but they they mostly lived in Mushin, which is in Lagos.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is not also not
that is
not the best
very
thing
oh
there.
shit.
Yeah. Basically, my parents were from the not the mud, but what if you've ever heard like Future talk about the mud, like they're from the mud. So, anyways, like I think my parents were just like, let's just get out of cities. We don't need to be around this congested people, and we'll figure it out.
Mhm.
And they had friends in this area, so they moved over here, and that's pretty much how the story went.
Okay. What about you,
Um,
Fosa?
education wise, um, in primary school, I think that was what you call like grade 1 to 6 in Nigeria. What we're taught about in our history class in terms of slavery, I don't remember 80% of it. As you remember, I told you what I get for grades when I was in Nigeria. But even from what I remember, there are some stuff that when I think about it now, even from Burna Boy's album, when he said that whoever it was discovered River Niger, like I
Magna
had to,
Carta.
yeah. When I think about it, I'm like, there might be some stuff they teach in the history class specifically that might not be what really happened, that kind of stuff. But I don't remember enough of it to be able to like prove that it is what it is.
Mhm.
In terms of after coming to America, I think during the time instant where we arrived in America, I think the only thing my dad mentioned when it came to anything racism related was, you're in America now. The first thing you have to worry about is education, and basically education trumps everything. And that's what he just wanted us to focus on and not even worry about anything else that was happening in the background, that kind of stuff. But yeah. But I have been like any other Black person in America, I've been exposed to racism, and the way I've dealt with it is kind of like passive, just because uh, I'm not, my kind of personality is not that kind of like, how do I put it, aggressive towards something that opposes me. But yeah, that's pretty much my take on
So I guess
being racism being taught.
when you experienced it, um, was it kind of off-putting? Like, so I guess how old were you the first time that you experienced it?
Um, racism. Oh, it was actually, I forget what church class it was. We're coming back from the bowling thing,
Mm-hmm.
and we took the pledges for bowling, and then when we come back, cause they had drink, I was the DD for one of the cars. So it was a couple cars that were driving them back to the house, like just to chill.
Yeah, you
And
drowned back
then,
the brothers that were twin
yeah,
brothers.
yeah, yeah. I was driving back the brothers, and then the cop passed the other white guys driving and stopped me specifically because I was driving. I don't think he saw the other guys in the car. So when he pulled me over and he saw I was a black driver driving a couple of white kids, I think that kind of, I don't know if that mellowed him down, but yeah, you could actually tell from that he pulled me because I was black.
Mm.
I was a real other person. And he did not have any excuse. There was not, I don't remember him saying I did something like run a red light or a stop sign or something like that. But yeah, that was my first experience. And during that instant, it did not come to me until after I started driving back. I had to think, I was like, wait a minute, why was I just stopped for no reason and that kind of stuff. And then even the guys at the car were like, yeah, he got stopped because he was black. They could tell, but yeah, it was something I kind of like was thinking through the entire drive back. But yeah.
Gotcha. So I guess with being here for, let's see, you said you were here when you were 14. So what? It's about 14
That
years?
was 06, so 15 years.
So 15 years.
Yeah.
So would you say that your understanding of racism has kind of evolved, or you're kind of still figuring it out?
I mean, oh yeah, it's better than what it was at first, yeah.
The understanding of the racism?
Huh?
The understanding or the racism?
The understanding. Oh,
Okay.
yo, do not even do that. But I feel like
Racism
racism is
2.0.
like, I feel like racism is kind of like iPhone. It finds a way to upgrade itself and come at you in a different kind of way that you don't expect it. That kind of stuff. Like,
Because
especially I would say up here in like quote unquote PC culture, like people will find a way to just completely be racist and discriminatory to like, put a smile on it.
It's like Brother Malcolm said, it's the same wolf, but in the north they'll bite you with the smile, in the south they'll bite you with the growl.
Yeah.
But so this is the last question, and then I'll let you guys go. I think we've been talking for a while now. So when you guys become parents, what is something that you would change about raising your kids that you experienced when you were a child?
I think we already kind of talked about it in terms of just like the punishment structure and things of that nature. I probably would be less harsh on grades and really push my kids to like do things they were interested in, and art and sports and things of that nature. For me specifically, like I wasn't able to do like sports well, I guess I was able to do recreational, like hang out with friends and whatnot, but I wasn't able to do sports in like a youth league or anything like that until high school, when I was able to do football. And then I remember I got like a B in winter track my second year, and my parents were like, nah, you're out. And that was pretty much the end of it. And I remember I tried to do winter track again my junior year, and they're like, nah, like cut the shit out, basically. And or maybe it was my freshman year, my grades quote unquote slipped a little bit, and my parents weren't having it. And then so the next year when I started doing track, they were just like, nah, cut that shit out.
They couldn't think that maybe it's because you were in high school and girls and everything. It's the track.
No, it had to be track.
The boys running in circles.
It couldn't have been, like the classes I was taking, the honors classes I was taking. It was just track.
Okay.
For me, I think I would, if I ever do have kids, I would expose them to as much as information as possible, because I know information is key about you. And actually just let them guide themselves towards what they want to do. Because even I know I've got the doctors of pharmacy, but I sometimes think, what would I have wanted to do if I was not pushed into doing this? And doctor of pharmacy, that's a good thing. So I would want my children to at least pursue something
that they're
passionate about, but still it's gonna be financially stable for them in the future, that kind of stuff. And also, I'm glad you brought out the sports. When it comes to sports, I was very passionate about soccer, which is called football in Nigeria, but soccer, yeah. But I was very passionate about soccer. I think soccer was like one of like the main thing that got me to go to school. Because I know during breaks I get to play soccer with my boys and all that. I would also want my kids to like be also involved in sport because my parents wanted me to do education first and then anything else comes second. And when it comes to sport, I would want my kids to be free with that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Well, I know that I said it was the last question, but Efosa, you in the chat, you reminded me of a question that we talked about. So I have to tailor it to both uh, the two of you. So for Efosa, it's like, do you feel like you fit in the U.S. and then Debo, when you go to Nigeria, do you feel like you fit in Nigeria?
Fit in the US, I would say I'm able I've been able to experience stuff in the US that have made me live a lifestyle to live in the US. How do I put that well? I'm able to live. I feel like fitting is not the right word. Like I'm able to live a lifestyle that lets me fit in the US. That kind of stuff. I don't know. Because
Well,
I don't think there's anything. I don't think I can ever fit in the US. I think it's I have to be able to fit in. I have to be able to live a lifestyle I'm very comfortable in. So I have that kind of stuff. That's very hard to put in words.
You have like the comfort and you can navigate the US, but you're not you like you said, you're not going to truly fit in because you're just your foundational years are just completely different. Like the way you're raised,
true, yeah,
completely different. The exposures you had and I think I have a few of my friends who are similar to you. Like they moved here in like 8th grade, 7th grade, things of that nature. Or I have some people who they were here and then their parents sent them to Nigeria to do like schooling because the Nigerian school system is actually really good in certain areas. And when they came back and they had their own like kind of different exposure to or different ideas about like their own identity, I would say.
mm-hmm.
But I think they would say that they fit in because they were born here, then they left, and then they came back.
So what about when you go to Nigeria?
When I go to Nigeria, I would say I fit in. Um, from a language standpoint, there's definitely some barriers there, but I understand Yoruba enough to fit in. And when I go back, it's to see family, it's to be immersed in family. Where if I really get down to it, where I wouldn't fit in is the market because the market is definitely you definitely have to be ingrained in that culture. Otherwise, someone's going to take advantage of you.
You have to be Nigerian if you're going to the market.
Oh yeah.
Not even just Nigerian. You have to be Nigerian and like have been in Nigeria for the past like 4 months because otherwise they're gonna figure out, oh, this guy has been to America or in London or
he got money.
He's got money. That's the first thought. He's got money, and I'm gonna figure out how to get it out of him. And the price of whatever you're bargaining on just tripled.
You need to have an Igbo friend.
You need to have a friend who speaks pidgin. I remember when I went to Nigeria, the last time I went was my cousin's wedding. And so when my family goes, we go for like a month. So we had gone for a month. It was like right before my junior year, I want to say. And so we went to Nigeria and we were at the wedding. And then one of my cousin's friends, he was like, yo, my mom was killing it at the market. And then the lady heard her say something in pidgin that wasn't quite correct. And as soon as she said that one thing in Pigeon, she was like, "Oh, you're from America. Why are you trying to fool me?" And she was like, "Damn, man, damn, you got me."
Yeah.
So it really is like it's its own kind of thing that, like, even if you are Nigerian, they will be able to tell that you've been
Americanized.
I mean, technically at that point an Akata.
Yeah.
You left home. You left home for a little bit. We can feel it. Like, I know you're in the house now, but I see those branches on your paw. I see the trees. I know you've been outside. So
yeah, and that's 100% true about the market, because the Efosa was there, well, the Efosa was there everywhere unless you were in your internship. But when we went to the market, it's like at that point, I think it was maybe our third week in that we went to the market.
It was towards the last week because we had to like buy gifts for people in America.
Yeah, so it was like our third, fourth weekend, and at that point, I understood that first of all, they could look at me and tell that I wasn't Nigerian. Apparently, because of the fact that I have locks, it's not a big hairstyle in Nigeria, so it's just like, there's something about him. Then when I would open my mouth, they're like, "Oh, you."
That's why you had to be quiet.
Oh, I was just pointing at things. Like, people must have thought I couldn't see because I would just be like, and then that's when Efosa's cousin then would talk and be like, "Oh, how much is this?" Da, 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 da. And then I would just hand him the money. And then after a while, some people caught on, but we were able to get some decent prices.
Yeah. Even with me, they think I've spoken with some people in Nigeria recently, and they like, "Yeah, you've gone astray," because I don't speak Pidgin the same way as them. Because Pidgin is very broken. It's a very broken English, and if you leave Nigeria for a while, your Pidgin is gonna like fall. So whenever I talk to them in Pidgin, I'll be like, "Yeah, you are categorized." That kind of stuff. Right?
Oh, hell.
That's why even when Ali was there, sometimes I had to also keep quiet and just let my cousin like do the talking, because he's used to that and that sort of stuff. But when it comes to like the language stuff you brought about, I think just learning the Pidgin is a good base for living in Nigeria. I think with Ali, if Ali spent maybe 2 or a couple more months, his Pidgin would have been improved and more kind of like fluent, because there was some stuff like before we came to Nigeria, I would say some stuff in Pidgin and I had to explain what that meant. Well, while in Nigeria, like while we're talking Pidgin, I was able to like correspond in that kind of shit. So,
yeah. I don't like people talking around me where I don't know what they're saying.
You're a fast learner.
Yeah, it's like you said. It's like we talked about being immersed in it. It's like you're kind of looking around and you're just like, nah, I need to start figuring out like what's like.
And it's really not that hard. Like, you just gotta listen, because there's English in it. It's just broken English.
Just gotta figure out what the base is.
Yeah, and like what the phrase is supposed to convey. It's like when you say like
the like lack of like what that sentence would sound like if there were extra words, kind of.
Not even that, because
you kind of have to fill in the blanks a little bit to a certain point.
Yeah, with some of them, because with the greeting?
Alpha.
Yeah.
Alpha.
So
like, just think about it. How far? It's like alpha is like, how far have you gotten? But alpha really means what's up. That kind of stuff.
So if you understand the words, it's like the English words, it's like how far. It's like, it's like you wouldn't.
How far is what?
Yeah, it's like how far is what? It's not what's up. So it's like the intent of the phrase also that you need to understand. But yeah, I think definitely if we can find a way to get your cousin on.
Oh my god!
Maybe if there's a season 2, I would definitely want to have.
There would be a season 2.
have us have a
Absolutely.
conversation about that, about our actual time in Nigeria.
Mhm.
But definitely, I think before, I'd say probably within the next 5 years, I think the three of us need to plan a trip to Nigeria.
Most definitely.
Even if it's for, I would say if we do go, let's stay for at least like a month and a half, maybe 2 months, because a month flies by really fast.
Very quick, yeah. I feel like
Uh,
going back to Nigeria with you guys is gonna be a blackout. I'm just gonna open my eyes in Lagos, close it, open it again. I'm back in Nigeria, in America.
Just wake up on the plane. But yeah, I want to say thank you to both of you for coming on and talking about this. I know that sometimes it is hard to talk about your upbringing, and it's like the things that your parents, how your parents raised you and things like that. Not many times people take the time to kind of analyze how they were raised to know that how they're gonna raise someone. It's like before you plant seeds, you got to understand your roots. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you as well. And probably thank you again after this.
Well, everyone, that has been another episode of Tomb Talks with the Pharaoh, and I will see you guys next week.